Right. Okay, we are live.
Wonderful.
Good evening, everybody. I welcome to our Pro Talks by Superpro.ai. I'm your host, co-founder and CEO of Superpro. And as you know by now, in Pro Talks, we are bringing our amazing super pros, amazing professionals from different fields. So every time we see that we have brought in actors, we have brought in entrepreneurs, we have brought in investors, and our intent has been that we bring a certain diversity to the pool so that when you listen to their journey, you get to learn something. So that's our intent. With that, let me welcome you all this evening in this today's session. And of course, if you have any questions, you can put in the chat box. You can put in the comments, and session, the recording will be available on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere. So, in case you are watching the recorded version of it, you can still put in your questions in the comment. We will route the questions to our guest, and we'll get back to you with answers. So, please feel free. With that, I'll present to you our today's guest, Mr. Chandrashekhar. Please, Shekhar, over to you for a brief introduction.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. Thanks to you. Thanks to SuperPro team, for having me here. And a very, very warm welcome to each one out here today joining this session. So my name is Chandrashekar Kupperi. In short, I'm called Shekhar. And I started my career with ExxonMobil. I'm a Pakka finance guy, a chartered accountant with multiple other finance qualifications and also, in management areas. So I was with this oil and gas ExxonMobil, business with almost 4 years. From there, I moved on to KPMG. And my last stint as an employee was with a UK-based multinational, which owned brands like Yardley of London, Finnis, which were extremely popular in certain geographies, and Yardley was popular all over the world. So this was a business which had almost 40 brands. And my role essentially there was M&A, which is mergers and acquisitions. So I was, doing transactions. I stayed with them for a longer time, 10 years, which is like a surprise, in this jamana, but that's what I did. Okay. And in my 10 years, I did almost 11 acquisitions and 4 divestments. The last thing I did was selling the group to Lee and Fung, which is a $1 billion Hong Kong based group. All this happened in December 2012. And as early as 2011, I felt I should be on my own. So somewhere this entrepreneurial bug bit me. So the timing was perfect for me when this deal happened. There was a 6 months transition. And effectively in June 2013, I became an entrepreneur. So I run a business which is called ANOVA, which is an advisory business. The focus of the business is 2 verticals. One is M&A, which is buy side, sell side, and the second is fundraise. We are sector agnostic, and we have done transactions across consumer, across health, across technology, across hospitality, luxury, and various segments. And I've been running this business for more than 7 years now. So that's been my journey so far.
Wow, great. Thanks a lot for the introduction. Okay, I will start at the very start. So, I see. So the time when you did CA, as I see it, it was very early. I just out of curiosity, at that time, in 90s, at that period, how was it like to become a CA, and how many CAs were there in general?
So during my days, clearly apart from engineering, medicine, chartered accountancy was considered as, one, top-notch sort of a profession to be in. And, in those days, you will find a lot of people who used to get employed, rather than, being in practice.
Okay.
And I was sort of fascinated by the fact that some of the CAs were also able to climb up the ladder and become, the CEOs. So it's not just the CFOs, because that's something that you would anyway guess, that
Yeah.
that's the top position they would be. But when I saw them in some of the other CXO positions, I mean, I truly got excited. And in my personal case, I'm fascinated with mathematics. So I used to love numbers, and CA gave me the opportunity to do slicing and dicing,
Wow.
the numerical ability, and whenever I used to see data, I used to find out, what is the insight, I can take out of the data so that I can present that as a meaningful information. So that was my personal fascination. Why, choosing the commerce group and then, doing your CA, and then, that's been the journey.
Wow. And how was the early experience? So ExxonMobil, as even then it was huge, and of course over a period of time again it grew much bigger. But at that time, working in such and then moving to KPMG, what was your some early learnings working in those places?
I think I must say I was fairly lucky, to join ExxonMobil, because when I joined them, it was mobile. And this is 1997. In the year 1998, Exxon and Mobil, they announced a merger, and it took almost 1 year for the merger to happen. So which means effectively in 99 only the sort of merger happened to become Exxon Mobil. So I had phenomenal learning under both this sort of enterprises, because both are within the top 10 in terms of Fortune 500 companies. And Mobil was a little more flamboyant compared to Exxon. So mobile gave me the opportunity to be much more innovative and creative in terms of understanding certain areas within the broader finance and accounting function, and it also gave me insights into how to be more strategic. In fact, my first acquisition I did when I was with them. So we bought a bottling facility.
Wow.
So that was my first, sort of experience, and probably that's what led me, to get into this M&A area in my later days. And then Exxon came and merged. Exxon was much more, into ensuring that there were certain ways by which the business was run. I still remember they used to have a controls document called Red Book. So as you can imagine, the word red, means
Yeah.
caution. You got to do it as per what it is being said. So I think that was a very interesting experience for me. I stayed with them for 4 years. Phenomenal learning. Grew with them. We had people from other Ivy League institutions like IIT and IIM. So the experience was much more to understand how people think. And I think one bigger lesson, if I've learned there is, the magic of thinking, towards the right direction of getting things accomplished in the right manner. That's something, which I learned in a much more effective way, as I was growing with the business. So in the first year, I was clearly trying to figure out, what's happening. But as the journey progressed, I mean, it was very, very enjoyable because I was learning a lot, and I was also, sort of climbing up the rungs, of the ladder in the positions, that I was in.
Wow.
And of course, I mean, your next question, why move to KPMG? I was fascinated with US and Exxon Mobil being a US company. US GAAP fascinated me, and moved to KPMG. Did few US GAAP audits, and then I realized that I think industry is where I can become a better person in terms of the experience that I can share and that I can also learn, and hence again got back to industry.
Uh, So this one question I have, I've seen even. So I have a lot of friends who are CA, and I always had this question with them as well. That okay, guys, you study. It's like with the Indian Institute, you study more about, of course, the Indian accounting system and so on. So how is it when you start? You have to work with US GAAP. How's the standards coming across? How much of learning, further learning, does it require? How do you deal with it?
The best thing about the Indian education system is, your basics, your foundation, becomes so strong. In fact, if you ask me, CA is considered, one of, I wouldn't use the word tough, but a course, which is not that easy to clear. I'm sure, no. I mean, many would have said, ki kitne baar try kiya,
Yes.
So sometimes, CA is also called as, clearing, attempts, how many attempts, you're clearing. So the foundation and the sort of base that CA gives you, the Indian education system, oh, that's unbelievable. And in my case, I was fortunate to do my cost accounting as well as my company secretarial, courses. So that sort of gave me a much more wider and broader understanding of the finance world, the compliance world, the accounting world, and how can you be more strategic? Because each course has got its own nuances in terms of how we can specialize. So when it comes to US GAAP is more of disclosures. It actually tells you, how you come up and be much more transparent in terms of having the schedules which are laid down, because in India it is laid down as per the ICAI, which is the Institute of Chartered
Yes.
Accountants, and that's how it is determined. It is all governed by the Companies Act.
True.
But the US GAAP, it goes more on the SEC, sort of route, and therefore the disclosures, the schedules are much more, and it makes you understand the financial statements in a much more better way. I wouldn't say easier way, better way, because you still need, certain understanding of how to review a financial statement. But that's the benefit I saw. The Indian education gave me a great platform, and then the disclosures, the way it is being presented, that gave me the next level of understanding, how you can even review financial statements, how we can prepare financial statements.
Great. And your first M&A experience, and then you said that's where you decided, or you felt that yes, you should go ahead with that. But what made you go for it really? That so you had your first experience, but then what made you think that this is something which you are going to really build your career essentially upon?
What I truly loved in a M&A is the process. So there is elements and then sub elements which you break into to ensure that you're able to make the progress. And then as you're progressing, there are a lot of ifs and buts. So it just spices up the whole way by which you can go about doing the transaction. And that was the experience which I had right from the first transaction. I was able to appreciate the process. I was able to understand that it's like there are certain precedents which are important to be completed before you can move to the next step. And that was so enjoyable even to understand. The best thing that happens is you start dealing with law firms, you start dealing with other advisors like tax advisors, and therefore it builds that ecosystem for you in a much more better way. Because when you come from an accounting finance background, I mean, there are certain limitation in terms of how you understand how a legal agreement needs to be drafted, and therefore what are the commercial considerations out there. Even in terms of taxes, again the structuring comes into play. So one may have a basic understanding of direct and indirect tax, but the structuring is different. So what truly made this process enjoyable for me, and therefore get into M&A is, one, the methodical approach it had. Second is how we are able to network with others in the ecosystem, and third, the ifs and buts, those challenges that you are thrown upon, the uncertainty which is there in terms of will it happen, will it not happen. I think that is
Yeah.
excitement.
So in this journey, any specific transaction where you really were on the edge, and was really a challenge for you in terms of
Oh, absolutely,
transaction?
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I'll give you a couple of examples. One from my corporate, work experience, and second, from what I'm doing in ANOVA. 2007, when we had the global financial crisis,
Yeah.
that was, kind of a challenging time in terms of looking at the opportunities, and therefore, having a view in terms of whether you should go for it or not,
Mm,
because you are uncertain about what's going to happen globally.
true.
And the business I was, our main markets were North America, Europe, and then came, the GCC, India, and Africa. So we were sort of, unclear in terms of what decisions, would actually help us. And later on say, that we did it right. I mean, there were a lot of, question marks. But again, I think the process helped. So when I say process, when it comes to a corporate M&A, you deal with, your business heads. So, there are, the sales, and marketing guys, then there are technical guys, then there are, production guys. Then, you have, brand guys. So you deal with all of them and then take a, very informed view in terms of, whether you should go for it or not. And despite those challenging times, we were able to ensure that whatever transaction we had we committed to in terms of we will go ahead, we were able to see through it, that it was successful, in the coming years. And that is something, that I'll never forget, because again, I have to thank, the method that is there in M&A. Second is, how you work well with the ecosystem, whether it's internal or external. And the third is, how do you, come up, with the so-called plan B, plan C, for the ifs and buts, that happen. So that was, truly enjoyable. But of course, it was not easy because it was, a global turmoil at that point of time. But if you have to go back, in hindsight, I think, the decisions proved right. And, you're happy about, the fact that, it led, to the right decisions. In terms of ANOVA's experience, I mean, when we did our second transaction, I mean, clearly, here was a buyer who was not looking to buy. They were more, looking in terms of revenue share. But then we had to sort of convince them. So we worked with them about 6 to 7 months.
Wow.
How those that sort of acquisition could benefit them in improving the bottom line, and also give them an entry into a new segment which is much more profitable, much more lucrative, and therefore will also help them acquire other businesses. So it took some sort of uh, again going back towards process, a methodology, helping them understand how that business plan could work in their favor. So explaining to them from a slicing and dicing on numbers, and then ensuring that you deal with the lawyers, you deal with the other people in the ecosystem before the transaction actually gets signed off. So there are areas where one needs to be very, very strategic as one goes through this M&A process. That's the bigger learning I had in the journey.
And you, in your corporate journey, so if you have to pick up the element, if you have to give an advice to your younger self back then, during the corporate journey, what it would be?
So I think patience is something that is a virtue, because I see in the younger generation there is an instant gratification expectation. And I guess somewhere that needs to be disciplined. In fact, I use a phrase saying that only when we move away from instant gratification to delayed gratification, we are truly disciplined. And I think that's a very important quality, that something I learned the hard way, because all of us start young. So, we are as, aggressive, as anybody is at that age. But then I think time taught me, experiences taught me, that one should be, patient, and one should ensure that, the perseverance is never lost, because the business I'm in, there are a lot of ifs and buts, so things could change quickly for reasons, that are not in your control. So it could be external, sometimes it can be internal. But how do you ensure that you have the perseverance? That's very important. The second element, if I have to tell, the young generation, is have faith. Have faith in your own self, because sometimes what happens is the ability to lose the sort of confidence is something that I see happens much more quickly. But I guess that's where the faith element has to come. So it's patience plus faith, which is an unbeatable combination. And with that, if you're able to persevere, I think that would be a great sort of support in the corporate world. Because if somebody has to define faith, I think my definition is very simple. Faith is the ability, to see things that don't yet exist. But you got to have, the sort of confidence and the belief, that things will happen your way, and that's the journey, they need to cherish. That would be, my sort of suggestion to them, that have patience plus faith.
Wow, this is really really good message. I think makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, because that is what, again, I cannot compare my experience with you really. But then yes, even if I look back, I think yes, being patient is something has definitely helped me later on in my later journey actually. And I also realized that in the earlier journey itself, if I would have been patient, would have been better outcomes. Great.
That's
Uh,
very true. And all this, I think, comes to us, based on, what we go through. It's not as if, like, we are learning enough, we have that wisdom, as we start. So I think all of us will go through it. But one is to learn by our own self. The other is, read books, listen to others so that you
Yes.
gain the learning, convert that learning into wisdom, so that that application of knowledge, helps you to grow much more faster and quicker.
And then from the corporate journey to becoming an entrepreneur. So yes, you mentioned earlier that you always had that in mind. But what was the trigger? What was that moment that you said, okay, now I'm ready to start, or now yes, it's time that I should start. What was the trigger?
So there is only one aspect, which was always in my mind to become an entrepreneur. And that aspect is, I think there is freedom. As an entrepreneur, there is a lot of freedom. And let me explain what I mean by freedom. I think the freedom to realize, that there are limitless opportunities, that you have around you. And I think that itself, should be a single, motivator, or, the single most motivator, to get into entrepreneurship. And the second thing I used to tell myself, is that if you're an entrepreneur, it's like a video game. There are many levels. So which means, as you, go through the video game, you're playing the game, you sort of, master one level. So if you master one level, you think, wow, you've done better. But then once you go through that level, you unlock a new level.
Yes.
So once you unlock a new level, that's a new challenge, which means there's a new challenge. Therefore, you have to become a new you. Only when become a new you, you can actually move to the
Next level.
the next level. So that's the beauty about entrepreneurship, because in a corporate world, there are certain structures, there are certain boundaries, within which you work. But then as an entrepreneur, the freedom, the limitless opportunities, I think that makes you work much more deeper. And I think when you work deeper, that's where your learning is much more phenomenal. And because your learning is phenomenal, if you're able to apply that in the right way, the right method, the right approach, I think that's where you start seeing success coming to you. So success is nothing but again a formula. The more you're able to do better, and the more you're able to exert yourself, towards your goal, I think success comes. Somebody says, luck is labor under correct knowledge. So that's what so you get lucky. When you're able to labor, with the right knowledge, the correct knowledge.
Mhm.
So that is, I think, the single most motivator to become an entrepreneur. And I think the second thing I realized was, the timing. Because if I had not jumped at that time to become an entrepreneur, I don't think I'd have ever become an entrepreneur. Because you'd have got used to the corner office, you'd have got used to certain comforts. And I think that is something, which, again, if I have to go back, I feel blessed, that I took the right decision. Yes, it's not easy. It gives you sleepless nights sometimes, but then the freedom is something that motivates you big time. So with my team, I keep telling them, that you are entrepreneurs, which means, you have absolute freedom, to choose, to decide the way you want to work, the way you want to come and discuss with me, the way you want to come and discuss with the clients. And I think that should help you also become entrepreneurs, if you want to become an entrepreneur. But I think, being an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, the biggest benefit you have is you start realizing, that's so much potential in you. And you start realizing, that, that potential has to be unleashed. And slowly, when you unleash that potential, oh, wow, that experience can never be expressed in words.
Okay. When you made that jump, you took the plunge to become an entrepreneur. What were the early days like? Like you had everything sorted out already. That this is the plan, and you just went ahead, or you faced challenges which you had not foreseen earlier.
Because I had the corporate experience, I had the basic understanding that this journey is not going to be easy. So it's not a bed of roses. So that was, something, that was very clear. And fortunately, at that time, I used to remind myself of a very important definition of a startup or entrepreneurship. And the definition is very simple. It says, a startup is a temporary organization designed to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. So which means if you're not able to scale the business, I mean, there's no point, no fun, saying that you're a startup. Because one of the biggest, sort of disappointment I see in today's startup world especially in India. We are the third largest startup. But then, after finishing the college or after, having, certain experience, people want to venture into entrepreneurship. I'm not saying that's bad, but my bigger concern is that becoming a fashion to say that, no, I'm also an entrepreneur. क्या कर रहे हो business कर रहा हूँ ये कर रहा हूँ वो कर रहा हूँ and now technology the sort of jargons that people use is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So thanks to blockchain, that's the next term. I'm pretty sure cryptocurrency will become the next thing. So I think if you're not designed to grow quickly, I don't think you're a startup, you're an entrepreneur. So that's something that I was always conscious of. The only thing I told myself is don't beat yourself down to grow quickly, because it has never happened to anybody. You have history behind you. Look at Microsoft, look at Apple. I mean, look at companies in India, look at Tata's, look at Birla's. I think nobody has done it as an overnight success. And as an entrepreneur, I always knew, because I had the corner office sort of situation, it's going to be very lonely at the top. It's never easy. So the one phrase I used to tell myself is that in Jab Ki Vet, Jab Bhi Met, there's a very famous phrase which Karina says, "मैं खुद की favorite हूँ." So it's like that. Sometimes you have to do a lot of self love to realize it's very, very lonely at the top. So how do you ensure that you don't feel lonely? So I used to tell myself, the only way you cannot feel lonely is to like the person you're alone with. So that's the only way you can start enjoying that journey. So I keep repeating these phrases to myself, because sometimes you go to this extreme situation, feeling absolutely despondent, things are not happening your way, but then the resilience, the ability to jump quickly back to say that things will happen. That's where patience and faith, those two weapons, they come truly handy. And of course perseverance, because without effort nothing happens. So when it comes to the entrepreneurial world, I think the discipline is a very, very important word to be cherished, to be imbibed, to be internalized. Because if you're not disciplined, I think we may still have dreams, but we will not be able to convert those dreams into reality. If you're not able to control into reality, we can still be called entrepreneurs, but nothing beyond that, because then it becomes a fashionable statement.
Yes, makes a lot of sense. Unless I think without a discipline, it would be it's again to really start running an org like more like a headless chicken. People running around, and yes, of course, there is so much of work being done, but no result. Yeah,
No, very true, very true. And I think because you said this, I'm reminded of the statement, which again, I keep telling myself, the motivation. We all need motivation, because without that, you can't be an entrepreneur. You can't do well in your corporate world also. So motivation gets you going, but it's discipline which keeps you growing. So unless we have that discipline, the growth factor doesn't come. That's why I keep saying, what is a startup? A startup is an entity that can grow faster. Because if it doesn't grow faster, I don't think we are called entrepreneurs. Now we're not speaking about hockey stick. We're not speaking about geometric progression. It can even be an arithmetic progression. But somewhere for yourself, you should see that there is growth, not just in terms of money. Okay, I think there must be growth in terms of how you're evolving. What is the rate of your self evolution? How you are able to ensure that your team is evolving? How you're able to even look at a particular transaction or opportunity and come up with a structure or a strategy to see through it. I think those to me is evolution. Those to me is growth than anything else, because money is a byproduct. It has to come later. But if you're not sort of improving yourself in these areas, then I think the whole idea of becoming an entrepreneur is only money. And I don't think that will lead to a a larger sort of enterprise that you want to be.
wow, makes sense. And in the from the early years to the phase wherein yes, building the business, yeah, how the journey has been for you at ANOVA. So again, uh, did it really turn out like did it go according to the plan, or yes, you realized okay, no plans, planning is like planning is good, but all plans fail eventually. How was it?
So, I mean, all of us, when we want to achieve something, both bada sochte, So I think that's a common phenomenon that many of us have. And I think, a few of them, do achieve whatever, bigger sort of, goals, that they've kept. Because I come from the corporate background, I was telling myself that in the journey, I have undertaken, can I ensure, that I'm able to build a team, ensure that I'm able to provide employment opportunities in the areas that I am in. So I run one portion of investment banking, and the portion I run is called M&A and fundraise. Now, can I ensure that people who qualify in finance, even if they're not from an Ivy League, let's say they have not come from a best of the colleges, from the commerce world or the arts world, or let's say they're not chartered accounts or other finance qualified people, but can I train them? Can I see to it, that they're able to truly understand what this portion of iBanking is, and therefore, they're able to see an incredible experience, for themselves. That was my biggest motivation, as I started. And we did have a roadmap in terms of how we are going to grow year after year. And of course, as we went through the journey, there were certain rough patches. But if you have to actually look back, there were other beautiful patches, that you should always look for and look up to and say that okay, those are the moments that you always need to realize and remember. Because unfortunately, 90% of our life is going right. It just that 10% which doesn't go right, and somewhere your dimag वहीं जाता है. Somewhere, I keep telling myself, that, a larger portion of your life is going right in terms of, what you're doing as an entrepreneur. And therefore, can you, whenever, there is this, negative, sort of thing that pulls you, somehow, can you have that resilience, to push that negative out and then ensure that, you're able to sort of count your blessings. Can you be grateful, for, what you have in your life and how you are able to grow? Because sometimes, the mind is, freaky, it tries to, get on the negative side. So the journey that I had, I was very clear. I need to ensure that, I'm able to provide employment opportunity, because that was my, clear, sort of direction that I set for myself. And I told myself that in my case, the growth is going to be, in a very steady manner. And if I have to look at the 7 years, I think we have done transactions which we can be proud of. It came in the newspapers and therefore gave us a lot of accolade also. For example, we did transaction with Oyo Rooms, and it was their first acquisition. So that's how it was also written. The way it came out, as an article, in the newspaper. So that gave us a lot of mileage because our name was there. We did a transaction with an Italian multinational in the auto component segment. Again, that was a phenomenal transaction for us. For a UK company, we were able to sign MS Dhoni, and that was an incredible experience for us. We have been doing transactions in the tech, whether it's a fintech or an agri tech or a consumer tech. We have been growing, in those segments. Now, we have sort of moved, to higher level, or in terms of the ticket size, and I think that is what I want to cherish, and not look back and go back and see what was my target when I started. Because as I said, all of us have targets, and probably bullish targets as we start. It's like your IPL match. When the team comes, dikhta Dubai play kare, it's a 200 runs, but you never know whether they're going to score 200 or 150 or even 100 or maybe more than 200. So I think the journey is every one step. And I keep telling myself, the secret of getting ahead is getting started. If you're getting started, if you're able to make that one, step after one step, I think that is the name of the game, and be very focused. And that's what has been quite helpful to me whenever, there are times which have not been in my favor. Unfortunately, I have a great team. My team, supports me big time. And, they also, sort of, get my, support. And therefore, that's how, we have been prolonging.
Since you mentioned the team part, so I have a question on that as well. So in the journey, so of course, as working in the corporate, of course, you hire people, you build the teams. But while in your own venture as an entrepreneur, what have been your learnings while building a team?
I think there are three watchwords which is very important for an entrepreneur. One is can you provide your team a sense of belonging? rather than them feeling, that they're working for an organization, can they feel, they're working with you to build the organization? And I think if that sense of belonging is, sort of, imparted, and they feel, that, it is truly meant. It can't be just a dikhava. It has to be, in its absolute true sense. Then I think, it's a very important facet, that an entrepreneur needs to ensure that it is there. The second is energy, what I call as enthusiasm, because that's the only X factor that's there, for a startup to show to the world, that they are in the right direction.
Yeah.
So can you ensure, that you're able to create that energy, within the organization? It's not easy because entrepreneur startup, it becomes difficult. But I guess that's where you got to lean on the strengths of the team members. Let's say somebody is very good with slicing and dicing of numbers. Probably somebody is very good with secondary research. Probably somebody, is very good, in terms of understanding, the US gap, or, the Indian gap, or whatever it is. Somebody is very good, in terms of strategic, way to think. So I think one needs to lean on the strengths of each other to ensure that, that energy level is, maintained. And I think, the third important, I will have to mention this. I think there needs to be a lot of, resilience within the team, because the nature of business, that we run, there are going to be ifs and buts. So how does the team view it? Do they call them as a failure, or do they call them as a feedback? Because they've realized that, yahan kuch galat kiya. Now that we know this, the next time, we approach it, we should, sort of seek success or closer to success. So that is the sort of, thing that I'm doing within the organization as a culture. One is a sense of belonging, that we are one. We're all working with each other. Second important aspect, is something which is very important personally for me, is to have this X factor called energy and enthusiasm, because it's contagious, right?
Yeah.
And the way you laugh and smile, I mean, I feel like, smiling and laughing,
Yes.
if there's a grim face on the other side, I also will have a grim face. So I think enthusiasm is contagious, and that needs to be there. And that also shows, how confident, the team is. And resilience, because it's never a question of, how many times we have fallen. It's always a question of, how quickly, we rise. So does the team, have that ability? And that is cohesiveness for me. If we are a bunch of guys, with that cohesiveness, I think, whatever we dream, would be a goal. And, it's the next goal now, because you'll achieve it, you'll move to the
Yeah.
next, target.
Wow. This is very, very good. Okay. I think a lot of startups will be able to relate with it. I think especially the first 2 points very much, because unless as a team you feel that yes, you are here, you're not just working for something, you're working with people and
Correct.
working towards a larger vision. And second, yeah, without energy, yes, it's true. I think energy and resilience is also, it's very well linked together. If you are low on energy, if you lack the enthusiasm for it, then even you cannot really be resilient, because to bounce back, you need energy.
Exactly. And I guess the beauty of sense of belonging is, all of us, can look at risk. Now, that's the easiest.
Yeah.
To say that ye risky hai, wo risky hai, that's the easiest. I think when there's a sense of belonging, you start seeing, looking at the reward. And it's, happened to
Wow.
me also, because, when I am pessimistic, I can see, that my colleague, looks at it from a very different perspective. And, the reward, that he shows to me is something that I've never, looked from that perspective. And that is something, I truly cherish when you have a sense of belonging. And touch wood, we have been like that bunch, where we challenge, but at the same time, we truly understand, that we are agreeing to disagree if we need to disagree. But otherwise, that if we are absolutely, united, we are extremely cohesive as a team. In fact, I call my team, I mean, team stands for together everyone, achieves more. I say together everyone achieves maximum, because you can achieve the maximum, if you're there together, and that sense of belonging, is truly an important asset.
So in between, I think just around when, or just after when you started, So I read about the award which you had got, Rashtriya Udyog Ratna. So what was that about exactly?
So that's the core of what I always thought. How do you create employment in the SME? And so that was an objective that I have always had for myself. And when we speak about employment, we are not speaking about giving employment in dozens and dozens. We're speaking about employment in the sort of chosen field that I am into. Because as I said, one of the bigger dream which I continue, to cherish is how do I ensure that people who are fascinated by investment banking, who want to get into M&A, who want to get into fundraise,
Hmm.
who want to get into financial modeling, who want to get into business valuation, how they can get into if they are not coming from an Ivy League or let's say from a good sort of commerce college. So I told myself that if I can train them and ensure that they become as capable as anybody else is, two things can happen. One is, they will stay with ANOVA and ensure they grow the business, or they will move to another corporate where they'll become much more valuable. Because one of the things which is sort of difficult for us to digest in this country is there are a lot many educational institutions, but then people are not employable.
Yeah.
So if we don't take that sort of an objective for ourselves, having seen it all, I think then we are not doing justice the sort of businesses that we are running. And I'm pretty sure many startups will be doing that. When they take interns, or when they take sort of people whom they are taking as trainees, I'm pretty sure they're giving them the right knowledge, the right base to
True.
ensure that they become much more capable. And as I keep saying, one is they can stick with you, or they become much more better sort of individuals when they join the other organization. And I think uh, that's an unhappiness which again can't be measured. It cannot be expressed, it cannot be measured. It's very, very interesting.
So, in the from the entrepreneurial journey, I see that you started becoming active as an angel investor as well. So,
Yes.
again, when did that happen? Was it just uh, again just a trigger that you decided, okay, yes, this is something which I should be doing, or was it did it evolve over a period of time?
It's like this, only when you taste the medicine as a doctor, you will know whether the medicine works or not. Okay. So that was my, sort of thinking at that time, because when I started ANOVA, which was around June 2013, you know, uh, the word angel, investment was never in my mind. But then as I was, doing transactions, I started realizing that if I can give the confidence, saying that I'm also investing in businesses, these are the learnings, that I go through, both good and bad. And wherever it is bad, how do you ensure that you don't, get on, with such, situations next time? And if it is good, how do you replicate it? How do you, ensure that the good is repeated many times so that it becomes better, and from better if it becomes best, probably you're in the right sort of system. So 2018 is when I actually became an angel investor, and started with a couple of investments in that year. And as of now, I have almost 16 investments. And you'll be surprised, post the COVID situation, I've done 4 investments. So
Wow.
COVID hasn't deterred us, not from investing. So I'm cherishing the the angel investment journey, because three things again. One is you're able to appreciate what's happening in the ecosystem. Because if you come from a finance background and probably you have more experience in the consumer side, I think some of the tech initiatives, some of the non-tech initiatives, but not in the consumer segment, could be in the healthcare. How people are able to come up with solutions, what problem are they addressing, and therefore what sort of unique solution they're coming up with. I think that's a phenomenal learning. Second is, if you truly believe in that, why don't you support them? So that's the second, sort of a feeler. I mean, we did not do charity, but let's, support them, let's guide them. And, I know if you have friends, with you who can also co-join you to make their investment, why not, pull those friends and ensure, that, that seed investment or whatever that initial investment happens, so that the startup, kickstarts and does better. And because you're anyway in a fundraise business, why not later on, sort of, get them funds, from a early stage venture capital, or probably, another group of angel investors. So I think that was, the second sort of motivation. And the third is, absolutely critical. I think if you have to look at the various investments that we make, I'm again a finance guy. I mean, They made our investments in gold, in real estate, in mutual funds, and stock market. I think the returns, that an angel investment can give, can be quite phenomenal. Of course, there's a huge risk, but then again, let's go back to the same phenomenon. Where there is a risk, there's a reward.
True.
So I think if you don't take the risk, there's no reward. So I think what happens is angel investment also, sometimes, makes it, quite lucrative, and that has been the third, motivation for me.
And do you see any parallel, like since you started angel investing, do you see that your background or the work that you had done in M&A and earlier, did it help you in where did it help you prepare being an angel investor, or you had to unlearn some of the stuff from that?
So, the experience that I carry, if I'm not able to share that, with the startups, I think I'm not doing justice to the startups. Because if it is only money, I think money can be still raised, किसी तरह हो जाता है, friends and families, you will still find somebody, who may want to bet on you. So I think I took a very conscious choice, that if I'm going to be involved, the first question I'm going to ask myself is, what is it, that you can give to them? And you're not giving just because you're putting in the money. In fact, it must be the other way around. You put the money, they should give. But I'm asking this question to myself: what is it that you can give to them? And I think that again is something that I've always looked into whenever I make an India investment. And clearly, the areas where I can contribute is ensuring that there is discipline, that is corporate governance, ensuring that the structuring happens the right way. There is a clear documentation. Third is to ensure that we are strategic. So some of the go to the market strategies, that we can think of, probably helping them, to come up with a business plan which is much more meaningful. It's not just an Excel, but something which is meaningful. Somebody who can explain to the other investors in a much more better way. How do you also fine tune the pitch that they have for themselves when they're moving to the next round? And if you have the network effect of having VCs and other investors, why not even connect them? So now looking at my profile, you're right. There are startups who truly believe that here is a guy who can support them, help them, and I think that is the way I always felt it should be in my case. I don't want people to just come to me, thinking that this guy is a super angel. Uske paas paisa hai, paisa dalenga. That's not something that I want to get into. I think if I'm not able to impart, the learnings that I have, the so-called knowledge, which I'm able to apply, I think that is not the right way to invest, because you need to ensure that the startup grows. I mean, as I keep saying, the definition of startup is a startup is basically a entity that grows faster. So if it doesn't grow faster, what is the even fun in investing in the startup? It's a very conscious decision I've taken. That people should look at my profile and think that there is some expertise here, and then reach out to me and then ask questions about what sort of investment I would like to make.
So, any specific sectors that you are looking at in terms of investments in startups?
No, in my case, I'm sector agnostic. I'm not particular about any segment. And as of now, as I said, no, I've done 16 investments. My investments are completely diversified. I've done even in a media business, so that's something completely unrelated to a profile of me. But then I thought that's something that one should do. So sector agnostic, looking at interesting opportunities, and also looking to connect them to the right sort of people if they want within the ecosystem. That's been the objective of becoming an angel investor.
And of course, when you are looking at startups, again, is it as a certain stage, like idea stage, concept stage, pre-seed, seed, early stage? What do you look at?
Usually, I prefer a startup which has a revenue of at least 9 months. 9 to 12 months is ideal for me to look at such startups. And the reason why I want that as a condition for myself is, if I can get the confidence that there is a traction, and the traction could be repeatable, I think the business can scale up.
Mhm.
because as I keep saying, one of the bigger concern I have within me is startup becoming a fashion. So I mean, I'm being very vocal about it. I'm sure it may not be liked by some of the startups when I say this, but I think I'm being very pragmatic when I make this statement, because if the growth is not happening, I mean, then the startup cannot move to the next level. Now the growth can only be measured when you have a customer base which is increasing, your revenues which are actually stacking up, when you're able to get more people who are downloading your app and then using the app, which means there are conversions, there are paid users, or let's say there are unpaid users. You see that the sort of retention or the sort of time that they spend on your app or website is
Yeah.
significant. So if there is no traction, how do you measure? Because I keep telling myself, what you cannot measure, you cannot manage. What you cannot manage, you cannot control. What you cannot manage, you cannot direct. And what you cannot direct can never become progress. For me, growth, progress is very, very important. I think progress is always made, when there is a precise, persistent, powerful push from the business side. And that powerful push is ensuring, that there is revenue, which keeps coming, keeps coming, keeps coming. So that's why I say that I'm not looking at hockey stick. I'm not looking at geometric progression. I'm very happy, with an arithmetic progression. But I want to see that things are happening. Of course, there are a few months which the business, may not have the same level of revenues, but then there needs to be a justification. Could be seasonal, could be a COVID situation, could be some other extraneous situation. But then, if it is reasoned out, makes sense. So the answer is, I usually invest in a business which has got, minimum 9 months, 9 to 12 months sort of revenue is much more attractive for me. And that's how my investments are in health tech, food and beverages, FMCG, consumer tech, clean tech, and even reg tech. That's what I've done recently.
And is there any synergies that you're seeing? So you being an angel investor and you running ANOVA, is there any synergy between the two?
Well, there are a lot of synergies because of the cross learnings. As you're looking at different businesses, different sizes, I think the cross learnings are phenomenal, which you're able to impart, even to the startups or even to the clients with whom you're working. And I think sometimes it's a nice way to exemplify a situation. I think if you're able to show someone or something and then say, "Dekho wahan kaisa ho raha hai," it's easier for somebody to truly believe it. Otherwise, people think, "Oh, yeah, consultant, yeah, advisor, So you understand, right? Sometimes people think, okay, somebody is only giving you gyan, but not a reality. But I think when there are cross learnings, you can easily show what's happening, and because you're able to show and explain to them, that becomes a huge advantage.
And in so you already pointed out the one challenge and one transaction, right? We highlighted in ANOVA, but
Correct.
in this journey at ANOVA, again, uh, any moments wherein uh, you had this in mind? Okay, why did I even start this thing? Did you have such a moment wherein you were really hard pressed and you didn't know really what to do?
Yeah, it has happened, because sometimes what happens is we all get carried away. Despite the experience, despite the sort of communication that you have, internally, sometimes we all get carried away because uh, you know you should never judge the book by the cover, but sometimes we end up doing that.
Yes.
So it's happened, but I think we are also fast learners, and I'm not ashamed to say that it has it has happened, and we have gone through certain situation. I'm not ashamed to say that. But I think the beauty about me and the team is I think we are fast learners, and we quickly understood that next time we need to improve our process to have this as also few more sort of conditionalities, so that now we are able to see through it in a much more better way. So yes, it's happened, but we have learned from it, and we've also improved our process. And I think that's helping us now, to choose a better ticket size, a better, set of entrepreneurs, a better set of business, a better sort of, scalable, factor for the business, a better set of network effect that we can bring. I think that's what is happening as an advantage at the moment.
And any learnings from the investments that you have made as an angel from that?
Again, the learnings are absolutely very very enriching, because when you have to understand the market. I think all of us generally use a very common terminology called target addressable market (TAM). But I think the journey of angel investment has told me that can we focus more from TAM into something called SOM. And I'll just explain quickly what it is. So you have the target addressable market, but after that you got to understand what is your serviceable addressable market. So within that addressable market, what market can you service? But then the next thing comes, which is called your SOM, which is the obtainable part. So within that serviceable addressable market, what is the market which you can actually obtain? Because if one doesn't have an understanding of that, then it just becomes a game of size, saying that इतना billion size है, अगर उसमें मैं अगर 0.5% भी लिया, 1% भी लिया तो मेरा इतना turnover होगा. So that game is something that we've realized doesn't work. So that's one phenomenal learning to understand the market size. The second is on the people side, because trust me, right people, oh, they truly define a business. And how do get to right people? Again, that's experience. So you need to have a lot of conversations, with the entrepreneur, the team, the other co-founders, and see how well cohesive they are. Because if there is no cohesiveness, if there is no mutual respect, then I think you're not talking about right people. So that's a very very important lesson I had in this angel investment journey. And the third is even trying to understand some of the opportunities I lost. So as an angel investor, there's always this word called FOMO, fear of missing out. So yes, there are opportunities which I've missed out. So I think it's also happened in a better way, now to actually also look at opportunities where you don't want to miss out. Because कभी कभी सोचते हैं कि मुझे ये पता है वो पता है sometimes that ज्ञान becomes a negative weapon. So more than the can, can you understand, what's the reality? Can you hear? Can you give more of a lending ear to understand what's happening so that you become much more better and therefore you're able to apply, whatever you have heard into, real, practical experience.
Wow. Okay. Yes, we are close to an hour. Any final any concluding remarks for startups?
Sure. For startups, I think I just want to, add this. Again, something I learned from my business, not as a corporate guy, but as running ANOVA, and something, which even my team appreciates. Fundraising is an extreme sport. So
I like it.
I just want to tell the startups, that don't take it easy, guys. It's a high speed, high risk, sort of journey that you're into. So I think learning to embrace and face rejection is something that you should learn quickly, because again that rejection is only a feedback. You don't have to get bogged down, because there is a rejection. And therefore, I'm going to say something in a much more empathetic manner. The word fundraising has got two eyes. There are those two eyes. If you have to write the spelling of fundraising, and I keep saying those two eyes should actually represent innovation and inspiration.
Wow.
It can't be imitation and irritation. अरे fund नहीं मिले, fund में irritate हो जाते हैं. And sometimes people ask me, I never got the fund. Because you're only imitating. You're a me too. I mean, me too in the right sense of the business, not the other me too that we hear otherwise. So I think to me, if you're inspired with that eye, if you're innovative with that eye, trust me, raising money will be a joyful process, because to me, raising money is not the key. What you become is the key. Because you will somehow raise money. You've tried, no, kahin to ho jayega. But I think what you become is the key, because the greatest value in life is not what we get. The greatest value in life is what we become. What are you becoming? And I think that is something, which that's why I said when I started ANOVA, I think I'm very clear. I want to see, what am I becoming in this process? If only I had money as a motto in my mind, I don't think, I would have been running this business for such long. I would have said, let's get back to the corporate world here. That resilience guy, meaning in honga. So I think, one has to realize, that we are all becoming into something as we are into this journey. And that's a fascinating part.
Wow. Yeah. This is super. I can easily say this has been one of the best conversations that we have had on Protalks. Really, a
Thank you.
lot of learnings, a lot of learnings. I'm sure this conversation, especially, is going to uh, generate a lot of buzz later on when people keep watching it over a period of time. There's really gems that have come out. I have made my notes. I've kept it here, but of course we'll transcribe the entire session and we'll put it up as a blog as well. But yes, this is amazing, really.
So thank you for your kind words. So grateful, for the opportunity too, because end of the day, I think even getting this opportunity is a blessing, and able to be part of an ecosystem. Again, that's something that's always fascinating to me. So million thanks to you.
No, it's all humility. I will accept it, but then yes, it's honestly it's been an opportunity for me, and it's completely my pleasure to host you and so many amazing professionals that we have been getting on the platform. I've been saying this again that yes, the best part of doing this is I get to talk to the people and I get to learn myself. So yes, that's
And the best
really
part is, I think it's a very super initiative. When you say super pro, because you're also trying to bring certain people, and their experiences, which otherwise I don't think there may be many platforms for them even to share. I think that sort of helps each other, to lean on our strengths. And I think hats off to Super Pro, hats off to you, hats off to the team.
Thank you, Shekhar. So one last thing. So now that you are available on Super Pro, what is it that people can reach out to you for on your Super Pro page?
I mean, but they can reach out to me, for any sort of, suggestion they need, any sort of help they need. I'm more than, open, to support them. So, let them feel free, to reach out, to platform and, whatever is the question, happy to address them. If I don't know, trust me, I'll go back, do my homework and then come back and address it. But that's what I want to do. I want to, make it more a contributory sort of a situation for myself. And that's what, that was the main motivation to join even Super Pro.
Great. Okay. So with that, I'll close the session. Thanks a lot, all of you, those who are watching it live, and thanks to those as well who will be watching the recorded versions later on, whenever. Yeah. It's been great. I'm sure you have enjoyed the conversation and have taken down your own learnings. And thanks a lot, Shekhar, for joining us. And with that, yes, we will be back with the next amazing Super Pro tomorrow itself, and in our next Pro Talk. Thanks a lot. Good night, everybody. Have a great rest of the week. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Shekhar.
A big thank you to all who have joined, and a big thank you to Gaurav. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.